Hello, Temple Beth Miriam. If you are online and if you are watching, let me know, put it in the comments below. And okay, good. Hi, Rita, it's great to see you. And I know there's going to be other people, so I see we have 3 people. It's great to see you. Harry, it's good to see you too. And let's just wait another minute and then I will tell you all about my trip. And I invite you to ask questions. Tell me who's watching. I see that there are 6 people online. Oh, now there's 5 people online. So just type in your name. Just let me know that you're watching, especially if you're from Beth Miriam, and especially if you've got children with you. And I'm going to answer any questions that I have. Ellen, it's great to see you as well. So welcome. It's 12 o'clock, and I don't know if you can hear the bell in the distance, and if you listen really carefully, you can hear a trumpet playing, and the trumpeter plays every hour. So welcome. It's great to see all of you. And Lauren, it's great to see you. Annette, wonderful to see you as well. So I want to welcome you to Krakow, Poland, where it is exactly midnight. And I have had a 5-day experience that is life-changing. It was absolutely life-changing. Changed my perspective and also changed the perspective of my colleagues. So, as you know, I came on a humanitarian mission, and the humanitarian mission was to collect medical supplies and clothes and personal effects and so forth that we can give to the refugees coming from Ukraine. So a little bit of geography. The Ukrainian border is about 3 hours from here. We were there yesterday. We went into Ukraine and we welcomed people coming from Ukraine into Poland. Poland is just west of Ukraine. So if you're looking at a map, you can see that you have Ukraine and then you have Poland right to the left of it, just to the west of it. There are many border crossings, and at each border crossing, people are escaping from Ukraine and coming in. What's incredible, and you notice it immediately, is that the people who are coming from Ukraine are women and children, almost no men. In fact, I think we only saw, in all of the 4 or 5 days that we were here, we only saw maybe 3 or 4 men who had to be all over 70 years old. And those are men who were able to leave Ukraine, because all of the other young men are there defending the country. The women and the children are coming into the country, and they are immediately being taken care of by the Polish government. The Polish government has housed them and fed them. And I'll tell you something very interesting. There is not one refugee camp in Poland. No refugee camp in Poland. Every Ukrainian that comes to Poland is taken care of in either a large center that will house them for 2 or 3 days until they find housing for them. And the Polish people have opened their houses. So there are many Polish people who are opening their houses and housing people Ukrainians, women and children, that they didn't know a month ago. So some of the Ukrainians that we met were going to places like Belgium because maybe they had family there, or they're going to Spain because they have family there, and they're going to all sorts of other places. And hi Adam, and the Ukrainian population, the Polish population is providing transportation for them. Everything is free. So when you donated your goods and I brought it over to Poland, we put all of these goods, and I think you saw a video too. We sorted them out, and they were all displayed in. Oh, hi, Sebastian. They were all displayed in not displayed. They were all put out in large refugee centers, and the families come in, and they're very orderly. Nobody's panicking, nobody's yelling or pushing or anything like that. And they're standing in line, and then they come into the center and they get what they need. And today we went to a refugee center that was incredible. It looked like a Macy's, like you see at Monmouth Mall. And they got clothes, and they got medical supplies, and people have been incredibly generous. The warehouse of donated goods is something the size of which I've never seen before. And keep in mind that all of this was organized in 1 week. It is staffed by volunteers, men and women and teenagers who have taken time off school. They've come here, they work, and then maybe they'll go back to school. It's really quite incredible. Our group of 25 rabbis brought 4,000 pounds of goods and $750,000. We raised $750,000 that we brought and gave to the refugees. And who's coordinating all that? In Krakow, which is where I am now, you can look at it on a map, there is a Jewish community center run by a man named Jonathan Ornstein, and he has created a Jewish presence in Krakow. Now, why is that significant? Because after World War II, there were no Jews in Krakow left, and anybody who had any Jewish parentage or any Jewish family wasn't allowed to be Jewish, because first you had the Nazis, of course, and then you had the Soviets. And he is amazing, right? He is absolutely amazing. And yes, thank you, Wendy. I'm going to try to come home safely. But the Jewish presence in Krakow now has sprung into life, and the people of Poland are taking care of the Jewish community. And, you know, usually when we talk about the Jewish community in Poland, we think of these black and white pictures, and we think of places like Auschwitz. And I'm sitting here in Krakow, and Auschwitz is a 1 hour drive that way. Well, that way. Okay, it's a 1 hour and 15-minute drive away. And the Polish people recognize how nobody rescued them in World War II, and the way their Jews were treated in World War II. And it's almost like their goal in life now is to make sure that that doesn't happen ever again. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, because there are still people that they're not welcoming through the border, especially people of color. They are coming in, but not nearly as welcoming as or welcomed as other people. But that is a relatively insignificant number because there aren't that many people of color in Ukraine. But they're getting, they're feeling some pressure, and so they're also letting them in as well. So far, Poland has accepted 2.25 million, 2.25 million people. Not one person is in a refugee camp. Now, let me tell you about the border. We were at the border yesterday between Ukraine and Poland. And there were some interesting things happening at the border. First of all, there's people that are actually going back into Ukraine because they want to go back home. And now things are quieter in the West, so they want to go back home. But we met people from places like I'm trying to get the name of the town, Mykolaiv and Kharkiv, and these towns have been destroyed. And there's nothing to go back to. One of the interesting things that we learned when we were talking to some of these refugees is that they're going to stay in Poland. They have become Polish, or they've taken Polish registration, which the Polish government has given them immediately, so they can get a job, they can get apartments, they can get all the government benefits. Okay, Adam, I'll put you on the video. Hang on one second. And there you are. There you go. Okay, whoops. For some reason, I can't put you on camera. But you can type your question in, Adam or Sebastian. And what was I talking about? Right. So all of these people can now work. They have apartments, and now they're becoming Polish. And a lot of people have said they never want to speak Russian again. How they're going to do that, I don't know, because that's their language. So here you have children who have spoken spoken Russian all their life, and now they're in school. So in Krakow alone, there are 4,000 children who are now in Polish schools with Ukrainian teachers. And so they're learning, and they've made new friends, and it is heartwarming to watch. So we were at 3 rescue centers, 3 crisis centers, basically. And at the crisis centers, there are doctors, there are counselors, there are teachers, and there are people who these refugees can trust. And let's see. So Sharon asks, are the Polish people losing jobs to the Ukrainian population? So we asked that, and the answer at this point is no. Are there probably instances of it? Honestly, I don't know, but there doesn't seem to be any resentment yet. The Polish people seem to, or are embracing these Ukrainian refugees. This is almost hi Olivia, and Diane. This is also a moment in Polish history. Hi Stephen, where they're almost feel like they're redeeming themselves, and they were under communist control after World War II, because the Russians invaded Poland after World War II, and then they didn't want to be seen as an uncaring country, and they're not. And this is really, truly a remarkable country in so many ways. And Sharon asks, what kind of jobs are the Ukrainian population given? The answer is I don't know. The only thing I do know is that some of them have become teachers. Some are, they're psychologists. Some of them are psychologists and doctors who are now working with the Ukrainian refugees in Poland. What's going to happen in the future? I have no idea. Remember, we have been in this conflict only for 6 weeks. And in 6 weeks, the country has welcomed 2.25 million Ukrainian refugees. What's going to happen in another 6 months? We simply don't know. This is a very interesting city too, by the way. We did a little bit of sightseeing as well when we weren't running around doing our humanitarian work. And I will tell you that my feet are very, very sore, even though I have really good shoes. But the city is very interesting. It's a medieval city, and it's one of the few cities that was not destroyed in either in World War II or by the Russians, by the Soviets. And so it's completely intact. So we have down there, about 500 meters from where I'm sitting, is a church that was built in the 12th century. There's a castle that was built in the I think it was also the 12th or the 13th century, and it's all intact. Everything is still standing. Let's see. Ellen says, Poland used to import Ukrainian people because they needed workers before COVID. The Poles were getting higher paid jobs. I didn't know that. Everybody seems to be working. One of the things we're not seeing in Krakow, and I didn't see it in Warsaw either when I was there, are people sleeping on the street. So they're at this point, there does not seem to be a homeless problem. Now, I don't want to make everything sound like everything is rosy and perfect in Poland, because I was just talking with the receptionist here at the hotel, and she's saying, look, we're a country like any other country. We have great things happening, and this is a really difficult moment in history, but they're trying to rise to the occasion, and they seem to be doing very, very well. Sharon asks, is it safe where I am? Yes, it is safe where I am. So I know a lot of people were worried about how, a lot of people were worried about my safety, as was Stella, my wife. So we are 3 hours in Krakow from the border. 3 hours from the border in Krakow if you take the bus. And the roads, by the way, are better than the Garden State Parkway, I promise you. And yesterday we were in we were in a border town called Przemysl, and that was a beautiful little town that before World War II was 1/3 Poles, 1/3 what was it? 1/3 Poles, 1/3 Ukrainians, and 1/3 Jewish. The Germans came in and they got, they exterminated all the Jews. But we met with the town council, and they are trying to revive Jewish life in that little city. That city was right on the border, right? Was the San River actually goes through it. You cross the bridge, you drive for 10 minutes, you're at the border, and that's where we were. So when we were at the border is about 5 miles, maybe, I'm not sure, 10 kilometers from Lviv. Lviv was one of the cities that the Russians were shooting missiles at. So if I was here 3 weeks ago, that would have been a little more dangerous. But the Russians are not going to shoot into Poland. And now the Russians are concentrating, how large is Poland? 950 miles to the east in what's called the Donbass region. And that's where all the fighting is taking place now. So there's no fighting up here, which is why some of the refugees are actually going back into Ukraine, because they were from Lviv. But anybody from Mykolaiv or Kharkiv or Bucha, where that terrible massacre took place, they're not going back there. There's nothing to go back to. Sorry, somebody's driving a motorcycle. The city doesn't exist anymore. It's just an empty place. And so the Russians are going in and they're putting up a flag like they conquered a city, but they didn't conquer a city. They conquered an empty field. One of the women that we met day before yesterday, I'm losing my time, as you can imagine, is I think she's probably about 26, 27 years old, a Jewish woman, has one daughter, came to Poland, and from the Ukraine. She was from Mykolaiv. Her husband is still there, and her parents are still there. And she talks to them every day, and so far they're okay. But she has a job now at the Jewish Community Center, and she was about to start medical school. So now she's going to start medical school in Poland, and she's going to be a doctor in Poland. And, when she was telling the story, it was very emotional. Here you had 25 rabbis crying. Because it was an emotional story, and here was a real person, not just somebody in the news that you could, just talk, you read about. And she was crying too, and that was okay. So I mean, we really made some very personal connections, and many of the personal connections that we made, ironically, were when we were walking from one place to another. And we got to talk with some of these people and, listening to their stories and their concerns, and they're worried. You make a human connection that you really can't describe. It's a connection of incredible respect. And remember, 7-8 weeks ago, they were living peaceful lives. The kids were going to school. The parents were going to work. Mom and dad were coming home from work and cooking dinner, and everybody was happy, and the kids were out there playing. And now they had to literally run across the country. And now they're living in another country and learning another language. Polish is not the same language as Ukrainian, and it's not the same language as Russian. Sharon asked a good question. In general, are the people from Ukraine optimistic about their future? No, they are not optimistic about their future in Ukraine. Okay? Many of them have had to pivot and have had to make the psychological shift of knowing that their life in Ukraine is over. There's nothing to go back to. If they don't have any family in Ukraine, or that everybody has come to Poland or to some other European country or to Canada or the United States, there's nothing left for them in Ukraine. Everything they had, literally everything they had, doesn't exist anymore. There's no jobs, there's no work, there's no house, there's no furniture, there's no TV, there's no bicycles, there's nothing. These people have had to start life again. One of the people that we met yesterday, or the day before, again, I don't remember, said that this is her third genocide in her family. The third genocide in her family. She had Armenian grandparents, and so there was a genocide of 1.5 million Armenians in, I hope I get this right, 1914, I think, okay, or 1918. So her family was, there were members of her family killed by the Turks in Armenia. There was the Nazis. She lost members of of her family to the Nazis during World War II. And now this genocide, and it is a genocide, in 2022. So can you imagine that there are this person has had 3 genocides in her family? How can that not be heartbreaking? You hear that, and it just rips out your heart. Poland and all of Europe never expected there to be another war in Europe in 2022. We thought that once World War II was over and the Cold War was over in 1989, there wouldn't be any more of these land wars, and I want your land and I'm going to kill anybody in my way. But that is obviously not true. So now I know that there's 25 of us here. So ask me some questions and maybe I can give you some answers. So if anybody wants to type something, please ask a question, especially if you're a child, because I'll answer any questions that you have to the best that I can. So give me somebody type a question, and I'll answer the question. Stacy and Dennis, yes, thank you. I appreciate that, and I will certainly come home safely tomorrow, and get some rest before the Seder. But it's going to be a Seder unlike any other. Oh, and I have to tell you about the Seder last night. I have to tell you. So we were in this little city called Peshemel, which is the one right on the border. And we went to a hotel and we had a Seder. It wasn't a full-length Seder. And there were about 250 people in this Seder. So who was there? Yes, they're vaccinated, by the way, Ellen. Who were the people in this Seder? Because there were some really funny experiences. So there were all the rabbis, of course, and then there were emergency workers who came. There were a couple of soldiers, I think, that came. And yes, Sharon, I'm going to answer your question, so hang on a sec. There were soldiers, and there were volunteers from Israel, Mexico, the United States, Norway, Canada, and Australia. And they were here. And they had tents on the border to welcome people and to do whatever they needed to do. And then a group of people. Okay, hang on. Hang on, Sebastian. I'm going to answer your question. Diane, I'm going to answer your question. And a group of 5 people came in wearing traditional Ukrainian costumes. And I don't know if you know the pictures of the Cossacks. You know what Cossacks look like. They had these long robes, and they came in wearing them. And they had the flowers in the hair. The women had the flowers in their hair. And they came in, and I mean, they really made an impression. They weren't Jewish at all. And they sat with our Seder, and they celebrated with us, and they sang with us, and they danced with us, and it was amazing to watch. Now, I'm going to answer your questions. Diane, I want to get to yours. Would I consider this life-changing? That's a good question. It's hard not to be impacted by this. And it has certainly changed my perspective on a lot of things. But, it's hard to say whether something is life-changing hours after it ends. The real question is, how will it change anybody who sees it? And I can't answer the question. Was it life-changing? Yes. In what ways? I just don't know. Sebastian wants to know if all the Ukrainian people that came across the border have a place to sleep. Sebastian, yes, they do. And not only that, Sebastian, but all of the children have their moms to protect them. There are doctors here. They all have toys. They all have clothes, clean clothes, and they're all being taken care of. Who did the cooking for the Seder? The hotel. The hotel. We didn't do the cooking for the Seder. I don't cook very well, as Stella will tell you. I posted a couple of videos and pictures of the Seder last night. And it was really funny. But, I was talking about personal connections. And after the Seder was over, people were milling around. So I went outside because some of the Ukrainians went outside. I wanted to talk with them, so I talked with 4 volunteers. Igor, who was 30 years old, who lives in Poland now and has for 5 years, but he was born in Ukraine. Diane, who is 18 years old, and she was about to start college, and now she has to start college in Poland, and she's going to be learning Polish and doing everything. There was Daniel from Australia, who was born in Kiev, and he speaks fluent Ukrainian and fluent English. And I've never heard anything like it. So there was a 3-way conversation in 3 different languages that was going on, and we were all trying to understand each other, and we had a great time. Sharon asked, what did it change my perspective on? Well, the first thing it changed my perspective on, Sharon, is it changed my perspective on Poland. We all had an image of Poland from World War II. And when we come to Poland as Jews, what do we think of when we think of Poland? We think of Auschwitz, and we think of concentration camps, and we think of extermination camps and labor camps and all these terrible things. And that is part of Polish history. But as the Poles will remind us, and as we should remind ourselves, that was more German history. And I did not know that there was not one Polish guard at any of these camps. Ironically, the guards were from Ukraine and Germany, of course. So I'm going to explore some of those questions maybe during a sermon, and how historical memory affects the way we look at a country. But the Poland of 1941 to 1945 is obviously not the same Poland of 2022. And Rita says, are there any Jews, I don't see the question. It says, are there any Jews among, I'm going to assume you say, are there any Jews among the refugees? Oh, yeah. Yeah, there are many Jews among the refugees. Rabbi Sai, what is the life lesson in all of this? There are lots of life lessons, Meryl. I guess one life lesson is that your life and my life can change at the flip of a switch. Like I said, 8 weeks ago, these people had a perfectly normal life like we have on the shore in New Jersey. And now they live in Poland. It's like if somebody invaded the United States and we all had to move to Canada. How would that change your life? Well, that's not quite the same thing because we all speak the same language. But it would, to be uprooted is very traumatic. And so when we look at the immigrants coming from South America, is there a difference between Ukrainian immigrants and Mexican or Guatemalan or Honduran immigrants? And I mean, that's a very important question. I don't know that the answer is yes. I think the answer is they're all the same and they're fleeing something. And I think that changed my perspective as well. Ukrainians in the past were very nationalistic and therefore anti-Semitic before and after the fall of the USSR. Did we get that? Did I get that impression that they're nationalistic? No, I didn't. Are they proud of Ukraine because they're proud of who they are? They love their country, yes. But they would love to go back and rebuild Ukraine if the war is over and so forth, and to live in peace. But we noticed zero anti-Semitism. It wasn't even mentioned. There was nothing. Oh, you're Jewish? What is that? There was none of that. They also know that we are the ones who are here to help. And what Krakow is doing as a city is saying, look at what these Jews are doing. They are spending their own time and money right before Passover to come help you. I mean, if that's not great public relations, I don't know what is. The World Kitchen sounds like the World Kitchen sounds like an amazing gift. Did you experience it? Yes, yes. The World Kitchen has feeding centers at every one of these crisis places. I don't know how many there are in Poland. There have to be dozens and dozens of them. And these are volunteers. They come in, and the food is volunteered. You know, it's donated. They prepare the food, and they give it to these refugees. There was so much food. These refugees have access to so much food that none of them are going to be malnourished in the least. The real problem, honestly, and this goes back to Ellen's question, is how long is this going to last? What we are thinking is at least 6 months before this war is over. At least 6 months. And they're preparing that. So that's why when we make donations, we need to continue to make the donations. If you want to make the donations, if you want to make donations, I'll be sure to give you the link, and you can make the donations to the Jewish Community Center, or you can just Google Jewish Community Center, Krakow, Poland, Krakow, Poland, and you'll get the link in their website. Ellen says being part of the EU and the end of the FSU really changed Poland. No question, no question. This is not a gray, dull country anymore. It's vibrant. Like I said, you can always tell what a country's like by the roads in the country, and they're really extraordinary. Ukraine has a Jewish president, and it also has a Jewish foreign minister and a Jewish defense minister. So, you know, but they don't look at Zelensky. They were telling me they don't look at Zelensky as Jewish. They look at him as a Ukrainian, and that's really, really important. Rita asks, there are many different. I don't know what it says, and I don't know what it says. And I can't read the comment, and it says doesn't exclude ingrained, and then it stops. So I'm sorry, I don't know what the question is. So if you can ask the question in like 2 or 3 words, that would be good. Are there any other questions that you have? Because I would love to answer the questions. And by the way, it's about 12:36 here, and it's kind of chilly out, so it's keeping me very much awake. Are there any other questions that you have? I'll wait. Good. So I don't see any other questions. I'm sure that there's 1,000 stories that I have, and the important thing that I want you all to. Oh, did I meet any Jews? Oh yeah, among the refugees. Sure I did. There were Jews all over the place. They came from Kharkiv. They came from Mykolaiv. They came from the central part of Ukraine. So there were Jews, and there were people with Jewish families. And in fact, one of the tents at the border, and any Polish Jews, millions, millions of Polish Jews. Many of the tents were Israeli. The Israelis somehow managed to put the tents in the best possible place, and they would also have the opportunity to come to the Israeli tent, and if they wanted to go to Israel, they would get on the next plane to go to Israel, because the Jewish agency would ask, do you want to move to Israel? Do you want to go to Israel? And so forth. Yeah, sure. And then they would go to Israel, and many of them have been taken to Israel. So there were Polish Jews. We've met Polish Jews. We met Ukrainian Jews. We met there are Russian Jews here as well. I'm going to leave you with this. I'm going to leave you with this. The work that we did here as rabbis, we did not do alone. We brought all of you with us. And for the first time in the existence of the city of Krakow, it's a 4th century city. So for the first time, the people at the Jewish Community Center know the name Temple Beth Miriam. And they know that I have brought you with me, and that you were so much part of this experience and so much a part of what we did here. And the same is true with the 24 other rabbis and cantors that we have here. And the Ukrainians that we served are so appreciative and so thankful and grateful for what you have done. They just don't have any words. I mean, that's what I really wanted to share with you. And Olivia, hi Olivia, it says, have any immigrants said they're coming to America? I haven't heard any. Coming to America from Ukraine is a lot harder than coming from Ukraine to Poland for a variety of reasons. The first reason is that trying to emigrate to America is very difficult. Coming to Poland is easy because all they have to do is cross the border. You don't have to pay anything. You don't even have to have a passport. Because sometimes they come without passports. I mean, who brings a passport with them when they're running away? And so they're registered, and then they settle in Poland, or if they have family somewhere else. So this is really an emergency situation. I don't know if you can get into the United States without a piece of paper telling anybody who you are. So it would not surprise me if in the future we met Ukrainians who have fled Ukraine to come to the United States, but I don't think it's happening anytime soon. And Karen, thank you. I'm going to try to be safe, definitely. I see Temple Beth Miriam is giving me a heart emoji. So I'm going to assume that that's my wife. And thank you, Diane. It's a privilege to know you and to have a Passover with you, and you be safe. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And these are the events that rabbis dream of. Not the war, obviously, but the ability to represent a congregation in such a positive and life-affirming way. And that's why, in this way, I think maybe this will be a life-changing event. So I want to say hi to Sandy, and I want to say hi to Rosie. Rosie, it's great to see you. And I know some people left the video, and I know it's been going on for 45 minutes, and I didn't really think I could talk that long, but evidently I can. So I'm going to ask one more opportunity. If you want to have if there's a question, type the question in, I will try to answer it as best that I can. Okay, so I don't see any other questions. I want to say once more how proud I am of Temple Beth Miriam and for all that you have done. We raised $12,000. I think it was $12,005. We contributed to the $750,000 that was raised on this trip by these 25 rabbis and cantors. And Ellen, yes, hopefully there's a trip in the future for everyone. Now that I've been to Krakow and I've been to Warsaw and I've been to the border and all that, I know a lot more about Poland than I did before I got here. And maybe in the future we can combine a trip, Poland and Israel, and talk about some of the connections and some of what it means to have historical memory, and so forth. And I'm not sure, Sharon had said how much, I'm not sure what that means. and it says you bleeped put. I don't know what that means, but I'm hoping that we can. Oh, Stella says we raised over $15,000. Right, $15,000. I said 12,000, $15,005, I think it was. I just had my numbers mixed up. I'm a little verschummelt. The bad part about traveling and doing as much as we did is that we're doing stuff for 12 and 15 hours a day, and then we're back here and we're processing and we're talking and we're schmoozing, and we get about 3 hours of sleep a night. So, we're all a little tired. In fact, my brother-in-law, Ari, is being woken up in 15 minutes, is being picked up in 15 minutes to go to the airport. So I might actually see him on the way back to my room. So everybody, I want to thank you again. I'm looking forward to sharing with you. You're going to be driven crazy with all of my stories. And Pat, your grandfather was a Polish Jew, and it's very possible that we drove through the city, the little town, the shtetl that he came from. Because this part of the country is called Galicia, and millions of Jews and millions of descendants of the Jews that came to America came from exactly where we are sitting. So I want to thank you, and feel free to ask me questions. If you want to help out more, what they need is money. To be perfectly frank, they need money because this is going to go on for at least a couple more months. One other little fact, in the crisis center, the refugee center that we were at today, there are 500 people who stay at it overnight, couple nights before they go to another family. And they go through, what did he say? They go through 5,000 pounds of food a day. Maybe that's about right. No, they go through 5,000 pounds of food in 2 or 3 days, and they have to constantly replenish. And food costs money, so send it to the JCC. The JCC sends 100% of it to the refugees. Olivia, thank you. I will take care. And Rita, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, your grandfather was from a small town right outside. I'm not sure where it is right outside. I'm not sure if it's in Poland or in Russia. But so much of who we are comes from this part of the world. This is where we come from. So really, in a way, we're saving the people who gave birth to us, Ukrainians and Poles and so forth. And where will the dollars that we donate go to? Very good, Sharon. The dollars that you donate will go to food, education, and professional counseling, because these Ukrainian doctors and nurses and psychologists all have jobs and they need to get paid. And so that's where the money is going to. So the more money they have, the more services they can offer to Ukrainians. And there are lots of organizations helping out, and that's where this money is going to. But if you have any questions, get in touch with Jonathan Ornstein and get more specific answers, because I think he'll be able to answer your questions much better than I can. Good. So, friends, it's getting cold out here. I want to thank you for spending the time with me. Thanks. I don't know what to call. I don't know what to call you. I don't want to say nimet, and thank you so much, and I'll look forward to talking with you when I get back and seeing you and sharing, and I'll speak about at least one or two aspects of my trip next week, because there's no services tomorrow night. I can't believe it's tomorrow night. Well, actually, it's tonight. There's no services tonight, but tomorrow, next week, there are services. And I will get home safely. Thanks, Karen. And Ellen, it says, get on jewishgen.com, look up the town where they came from, and they'll tell you the name. And yeah, so everybody, you can check jewishgen.com. Good. So I know that things are getting late because the pilots and the airline attendants are all coming in from their flight. So their day is over. So I think I should take a hint. So guys, I will see you all later. I thank you for spending these past 50 minutes with me, and I'll look forward to seeing you when I get back. So take care, and I brought you here with me, and I will bring you back home with me when I get home. So take care, everybody, and have a great evening. Bye-bye.